Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of CMMC Connect. My name is Monica. I'll be your host and your moderator for today's session. Thank you for spending part of your day with us. As everyone knows, there has been a tremendous amount of discussion over the last several weeks regarding the pause to CMMC Level 2 contract enforcement. So we've received questions from contractors trying to understand what this means for their organizations. So today we'll share the latest updates before opening it up for discussion. So as many of you know, 2026 marks America's 250th anniversary, and Redspin is hosting a patriotic networking event upcoming during the National Cyber Summit in Huntsville this September. So naturally, Dr. Graham needs an outfit that matches the occasion. So Thomas needs your help on deciding which outfit he should purchase. So please give us your feedback on what your best option is for him. Is it A, Star Stripes and Swagger, B, Macho Patriot, C, Uncle Glam, or D, General George Washington? So take a moment, cast your vote, and let us know what Thomas should wear. And Thomas, before we share the results, do you have a personal favorite of these, or are you willing to trust the judge?
For the wrong one.
Yeah, well, I will tell you what I don't wanna see him.
Well, these outfits all came about because of other ideas I have being vetoed before the larger group found out about. So this was actually that was negotiated in advance.
All right. We've got 61% of audience members have voted. We'll give it 10 more seconds, and there is a tie. So it's
Oh,
kind of
boy.
between B and C. So get your votes in.
Please
All
don't
right.
concede. Please.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's close it and share the results. So the winner was Uncle Glam.
Oh God.
Man.
I will find you folks.
30% of you voted Uncle Glam.
And if you know Thomas Graham, he takes a dare. So we will see
Yeah.
something.
Maybe we wear a little shirt underneath.
Special for you, Carly, so enjoy.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for the fun before we get into what we've all been thinking about and wanted to discuss. So, over the last several weeks, the CMMC Phase 2 development has been described as everything from a pause to a rollback, creating understandable confusion about whether contractors should delay their plans. Department of War is gathering feedback, industry feedback on costs, third-party validation, CUI identification, and possible program changes, but no final decisions have been announced. So I'm going to pass the mic over to Rob for the next few slides to talk us through his most recent meeting at the Pentagon, focused on industry feedback and potential adjustments to the program. So Rob, can you help us clarify what is actually paused, what remains in effect, and Damien can help us with what contractors can do next. So Rob, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, so, it's the DoD's world and we're just living in it. That's a direct quote from the Cyber AB, and we absolutely love that because it is true. It is the DoD's program, DoW, whichever you prefer. And, we answered the call as C3PAOs, and that's why we're here. While the program is paused, that does not mean the requirements are paused. So you still have requirements that are levied by DFARS 7012, and all of that requires the NIST 800-171 requirements to be complied with. So you should continue moving if you're not compliant yet on that path. All right. What most folks are holding off on is the C3PAO assessments, since that was kind of what was called out. So we're waiting to see at the end of this 60-day pause what's going to happen with that. But the bottom line is, do not stop protecting the data. That is the key piece of all of this. Remember, CMMC is only a validation program. It's just to validate that the requirements are being met. And it's just to check the block for the DoD, if you will. But more importantly, the C3PAO assessments provide, according to the Cyber AB, which we agree with, a security blanket for a lot of those primes, as a protection from Department of Justice coming after them. So in conversations with a lot of the primes, they are continuing to move forward, and they are still asking their subs to get their certificates. So let's jump to the next slide and talk about what we kind of did last week. So I was privileged to be a part of a small group that got to meet with Miss Davies at the DoW CIO office and her deputy, Mr. Bishop. The bottom takeaway here is that Miss Davies is not really a fan of NIST 80171. She thinks it's outdated. She thinks it's very governance heavy, which it is. It's a roughly 70% governance, 30% she wants to see more validation testing, more resiliency from the contractors. The fact that breaches have gone up across the DIB community is setting off alarms in the Pentagon. And the way I kind of look at that is as compliance starts to come into place with a lot of these organizations, you should expect the breach reporting to go up because now they're doing what they're supposed to do. So, all of that is kind of tied into there. The main thing is she was kind of leaning toward looking at a new framework. Don't know what that would look like or how long that would take. Because remember, the 32 CFR rule is a regulation. So to make changes to that, it's going to cause another rulemaking process to take place. And we all know how long it took the 32 rule to get in through that process. It was almost a year or so. So it's not anything that's going to happen overnight. So we're just really interested to see what will happen at the end of this. Couple of important things for you. One, she is very, very, very interested in what we feel is wrong right now with the program and any kind of improvements we can make. So as we made a couple of those from this small team that met with her, she was taking those notes down diligently. So take the opportunity if you can, get into the RFI and let your voice be heard on what you feel about this program. Is it worthwhile for you? Those kinds of things. Also, give her some good recommendations. If the program is going to stay the way it is, what do you guys want to see improved there? I know we gave her a full list, but your voice matters as well. The other thing is there's a lot of roundtables that are starting to go, and there's going to be tiered levels when it comes to this task force that's going to be reaching out to the community. It is starting with the DoW themselves and internally within the Pentagon. Then it's shifting into other federal organizations such as DISA, all those types of folks. Then the third tier will be the DIB contractors themselves. So they'll hold meetings with you guys to get some insights. And then the final tier, tier 4, will be the C3PAOs, the Cyber AB, and most likely the CAICO, which is ISACA. So all of those folks, with this going on, please get your voice heard. Just like when the rules come out for public comment, if you sit on the bench and wait for things to happen, it's not going to. So you got to get your voice heard. Okay. So far, according to the deputy, I do want to point this out. He looked directly at each one of us and said, listen, this pause was not intended to stop anything that you guys are doing, to include the certification assessments you're performing. So it's almost like, per the words of the Cyber AB during their town hall, we're almost back to the voluntary certification piece here, at least until the 60-day pause has completed. But most importantly for you guys, continue to move forward. All right, let's go to the next slide, and then I'll pass it off to Damien. We'll talk about some things we have been recommending to our clients over the last few weeks in all kinds of different phone calls, emails, everybody asking us for, our insights. These are kind of the guidelines we provide to a lot of those folks. So Damien?
Yeah, probably most importantly is don't take your foot off the gas. As Rob stated, DFARS 7012 is not going anywhere. The requirements to implement security requirements in NIST 800-171 has not gone anywhere. The requirement to self-assess using NIST 800-171 alpha has not gone anywhere. So if you're in your journey, so to speak, keep going forward. Make sure you're maintaining an accurate and up-to-date SPUR score. Know where your CUI is stored, processed, and transmitted. Prepare for that third-party validation. We don't know what changes are going to be made, but there's a lot of value from the DOW's perspective on third-party verification and that, kind of that independent check. And also, this has been stated by numerous people. Rob even said it too. That third-party assessment is your best insurance that you are doing things correctly. And probably most importantly, respond to the RFI.
So that, to jump in with you, Damien, there's some things that happened in the last few weeks during this pause that you guys should be aware of if you're not. One was they increased the amount of personnel within the Department of Justice. Hello, knock, knock on wood. Here it comes. And the other piece is they put in additional protections for whistleblowers. So just keep those in mind. Go ahead, Damien. Sorry.
No, that's an excellent point. Thank you. So we don't know what the final recommendation is going to be. We don't know. A lot of our clients, vast majority of our clients, are still continuing forward as planned. We're still doing level 2 assessments. We're still consulting. It's things are still moving forward. Per the town hall, the infrastructure that supports CMMC is still in place and still operational. It's still doing EMAS reports. The AB is still functional. The PMO is still functional. Everything is still moving forward. And ultimately, waiting is going to create more uncertainty. You need to implement 171. Don't stop that. And at the end of this 60 days, that is not going to go away, right? It's still DFARS 7012 still going to be there, and 171 is still going to be there.
So we do
Yeah.
have some questions that came in, guys. Dan
Yes.
asked, would you elaborate on what is meant by the concern that the program is compliance heavy, and what is the alternative?
Yeah. So kind of again, she didn't elaborate a lot. She was very guarded, obviously. Because they don't want to put too much out there as they're still making decisions. Some folks will take that and run with it. So she was very cautious. But what she means by the governance is the fact that there's 14 domains within NIST 800-171. And per the NFO requirements down in Appendix E of that document, you must have a policy and a procedure for all 14 domains. That's a lot. Why couldn't you just have a simple policy that states, hey, we are such and such organization and we're following NIST 800-171, blah, blah, blah. So the focus seems for the program to be a lot on the documentation piece, which is, don't get me wrong, very important. For example, we over here at Redspin have a fully documented process of everything that we do. That's in case Dr. Thomas Graham wins the lottery, takes off to Bora Bora. Damien knows how to fill his shoes, right? So that's why your documentation is important. But she feels the focus is too much on that when she really wants to see the focus on the testing of the environment, which NIST 800-171 does test. We look at the vulnerability scans. We look at your remediation timeline, and then we ask you to pull up some tickets and other things to validate that you're tackling those vulnerabilities within the timeline you've described. So there's a lot of testing that goes on with NIST 800-171, but where she's really driving it is penetration testing. That is not a requirement for level 2. It is for level 3. So she wants to see what is their resiliency like? What is it? How do they bounce back from these adverse attempts on their networks and environments? That's what she really wants to focus on. So the other piece, as you mentioned, Thomas, was OT. She felt that the OT wasn't really wrapped into there as well. So that's what she means by governance heavy.
And Felice, did you have anything you want to add to that?
Yes, the first week and when the memo originally came out, every call, and I have a nice group and stay very busy with my Redspin clients and happy to be busy. Every single one of them said, full steam ahead, no pause. Now,
Mhm.
interestingly enough, one of our major international clients had a new CISO level person come into our CMMC meetings. And that person had never experienced the pause that all of us have gotten used to, some of what I like to call the CMMC roller coaster over the last 7 years. And so talking her through just what that meant from a bureaucracy standpoint and what our team, and especially with Rob and Thomas being such a big, huge part of the leadership from the beginning with CMMC, but every one of my clients, without exception, no pause whatsoever. And they see it as a great business decision to keep going with CMMC.
Mhm. And we have, as we're reaching out, talking to a lot of our clients and mainly the primes, one of the primes is actually taking this 60-day pause. And we're really certifying roughly 30 to 60 of their subs right now. And they've kind of paused those individual assessments until the 60 days is complete and they know what's going on in case she makes any changes to the certification piece of it. But they fully intend for all of their subs to be certified. But during this pause, he explained to me that he was having his teams run through backups. So full restore backups, testing to make sure their personnel know, what are the key restore things that need to come up first, all of that kind of stuff. So talk about leveraging the 60-day pause to an advantage for your company. That's one of the best I've seen. So continue to do the right things, guys. The naysayers right now and those that probably most likely have not been doing things right from the beginning, which is what ended up driving this program. They kind of ruined self assessments for all of us, including us, because we provide our own self assessments as well. And that's gone now. So, because of this program. So, we're all in the same boat because of the folks that didn't do things right. So, keep going forward and do the right thing, and you guys should be all right. And we'll keep you posted as changes and updates come out of the Puzzle Palace. We'll keep you guys informed.
Hey, really quick before we go to the next slide, just to recap, going back to your meeting at the Pentagon, Rob, for folks who are listening to this replay as a podcast, can you share who you met with?
Sure.
And if what kind of high level what we shared in that meeting, and talk a little bit about our RFI response?
Yeah. So we met with the DoW CIO, Miss Davies herself. We also met with her deputy, Mr. Bishop, and various personnel from their staff. So the lead of the CMMC program, internal within the CIO office, etc. They were taking a lot of notes, really paying attention to what we were saying. So it's not like they brought us up there just to check a block. They were very interested to hear what we had to say. So that's why I encourage you guys to participate in the RFI. Some of the things we pointed out, which have been pain points I have seen as we've moved through all of the assessments we've completed thus far, and just listening to the DIB contractors, because remember, we got to get this certification ourselves. So we also know what the pain points are. One of the biggest ones is the fact that there's a lot of confusion out there between implementation costs and the CMMC assessment cost itself. The CMMC implementation, again, there's no such thing as that. There is implementation of the NIST 800-171 requirements per the DFARS 7012 rule. That is a very expensive process to secure this data properly. It is what it is. The assessment itself, at most is anywhere from 50 to 85K. Divide that by 3 because that's what you'll pay annually over the 3 years. Go ahead, Tom. Hands up. Jump in, bro.
Hey, look at me. I'm being polite this
I know.
I
I'm
know.
impressed.
I don't know what's wrong with me.
You are growing up.
But no, I mean, if you've been listening to Connect since the beginning, we've honestly kind of said it about each month that the majority of the costs with this is on the implementation side, and all of those costs honestly were adjudicated during DFARS 7012 rulemaking. The problem now, though, is that a lot of folks are equating implementation to a CMMC requirement, and CMMC doesn't require you to implement anything. It's that validation. But the other issue, which honestly is lost in some of the discussions, and being a contractor myself for over a decade, maybe I'm more jaded than most, but I've had almost a decade to implement them, and now you're trying to implement it within 6 to 8 months. Costs are going to be higher. And that's just a bottom line from it. I know the contractor that I was working with back in 2016 started their process then, and they've been able to spread out those costs over the time period of their contract. But bottom line, honestly, it sounded like the CIO's office had gotten a lot of inaccurate information, and that was part of the goal of this group was to kind of clarify, to level set. They have asked us for some more information, which we're collecting, and as a group going to provide back to them, and that's information that can be verified and validated, not just speculation or assumption.
Yeah, and I don't want to take too much time in this because I do want to get to everybody's questions. But The other thing we pointed out was if they are concerned about the bandwidth of the Cyber AB and the amount of assessors that are available, they need to unlock the team structure. When 32 rule came out, it tied the lead CCA, two of them, and a CCA to the teams. One acts as a QA. But by locking that, they've taken all of the CCPs out of the equation. And there's over 2,000 of them. If they would allow the C3PAOs to determine what the team structure should be based off the scope of the project, then you will not have a backlog issue because we can leverage the CCPs. Second thing we brought up was the fact that for many of the DIB contractors, once they get certified, they start pulling in all these contracts. Well, then they start picking up all new acquisitions to join their company, and that's new cage codes. So then they reach out to us and say, hey, can we add this cage code to our certificate because they're going in the same environment, following the same processes and procedures. And the response right now is no, you have to go through a full recertification. And I don't think Miss Davies was really tracking that because she looked at me kind of funny and then made sure she took that note down. So that is something that, I never bring up a problem without a suggestion. So one of the things I recommended was, during the assessment, we validate everything that you guys are doing to include your processes. So if we have given you a certificate, that means how you onboard people, organizations, anything has already been vetted and you guys are doing it properly. So based off that, open up the certificates so that it's a administrative adjustment and allow the C3PAOs to go in and adjust the certificates with a no cost fee to the DIB contractors. So that was another kind of recommendation we brought up. So there was quite a few. The RFI is looking for some specific things, but don't be afraid to put anything else in there that you guys feel is important, right? The questions that they're driving at with the RFI may not cover everything. So make sure you get your voice heard. If you see something else that's wrong with the program, put it in there and let's get it cleaned up. Let's take this opportunity and clean this program up while we can. If that's what she's doing with this pause, then let's provide her all the ammunition she needs to take that target down.
All right.
All right. And real quick before we do go on, we do have somebody that's joining us in the audience, but is going to be on one of our future CMMC Connects and some podcasts with us, Carly Salmon from Microsoft. So, Carly, if you don't mind, what are you guys doing at Microsoft? What is your kind of message to the folks out there? If you want to come off mute and join us.
Yes, hi, neat challenge. Yeah, I mean, we're very much in kind of the same, from like a DIB perspective, we're in the same boat as everybody else. But like you said, and like most of your clients are doing, we're kind of moving forward as is. I mean, I guess, quote unquote, luckily, we've already been assessed. So we're just kind of
Mhm.
waiting to see what pans out for if any further actions need to be taken before reassessment. But between that, and I mean, there's really no input, I guess, if you will, from like a CSP perspective, but we
Mhm.
are still, you know, operating as if this is going forward until we get more information from DoW on like the rest of the community. So that's kind of where we're at from our standpoint. But from the Carly Salmon prior DibCac days, I would say don't wait to see what the responses are because you don't want to be, it's kind of that's been like the broken record throughout this entire process over the last, almost 10 years. Like, don't wait, everyone knows that self-attestation doesn't work. And that's why the False, Claims Act has been occurring and that can still occur. So and like you said, the DFARS clause is still in effect, so there are still requirements out there. So all this might change is what this phase 2 looks like or what the next steps look like. So keep moving forward and trying to secure. I mean, you may just be getting more time to have, like you said, for some of your clients, they got some more time to do the work themselves, but keep moving forward because the requirements are never going to go away. So it's just kind of what this next step looks like, if you will.
Thanks, Carly. Appreciate it. And yeah, Microsoft certified under the Joint Surveillance Program first, and then actually just this earlier this year finished their recertification. So they're good for the next 3 years. But still, they're sticking to their guns and moving forward. So that's refreshing to hear. Appreciate that, Carly. I'm gonna pass this to Lauren because We did get some updates during the Cyber AB Town Hall Tuesday. If you were not able to join, there has been an increase in the production of CCAs and CCPs to include the C3PAOs. So, Lauren?
Yes, and I do want to share, Jackie, we saw your hand up. Please raise it again during the live Q&A, and I want to hear what you have to say. So, yep, as Rob said, a quick CMMC ecosystem update. As of today, July 30th, 2026, there are 1,082 CCAs and 111 C3PAOs. One of those 111 is now an accredited C3PAO. On top of that, we've now probably, as of today, surpassed 1,866 formal CMMC Level 2 certifications. So, despite all of the recent headlines and discussions around the big pause, organizations are still moving forward, assessments are still happening, and the CMMC ecosystem continues to mature. Carly, you asked a question in the chat. What are we seeing our clients do? Majority are moving forward as planned.
Yep.
Yeah,
Thanks, Lauren.
touch on that last bullet there. Thomas already covered it, but just to reiterate one more time, there is no such thing as a CMMC implementation. It is a DFARS implementation. CMMC is just the validation mechanism. So that was stressed also in the town hall.
Yep. Thank
Jeremy.
you, sir. And
All right,
welcome back from your conference, Jeremy. Go ahead, Monica. Sorry.
We've received several great questions from registrants before today's session, so we'd like to tackle those first before we open up the floor to live Q&A. So let's get to our first question, and bear with me, it's a little long, but we do want to read it in full for those listening to the podcast. We are a machine shop in Renfrew, Ontario, Canada, with the majority of our contracts from the aerospace and defense sectors. We have a Prevail Enclave, one subnet only, a Windows domain, and Forta Authenticator two-factor authentication on all workstations, BitLockered and FIPS enforced. All offices with a CUI workstation are locked in the evening. All ITAR, CUI, DFARS are kept in cloud-locked Prevail Drive. This question has to do with perimeter security. Are we required to have video surveillance? Currently, all visitors report to the main entrance and sign in and allocated a CUI restricted or CUI approved badge and escorted through the facility. Is video monitoring required, and can it be done internally as long as it does not show any CUI? Robin?
No, what you actually need is trained attack deer.
That's
the preferred solution.
First, I was going to say take off. Some of my favorite Canadian brothers. What's this all about? Yeah.
But no, but in short, guys, is video monitoring required? No, the requirement and the objective is just monitoring. You can do that any way that you want. It's just you have to provide evidence that you're doing it, adequately and sufficiently for your scoped environment. That can be cameras, it can be security guards, it can be the attack deer I was just joking about. And I mean, honestly, it can be a number of things. It's just most organizations solve this with video cameras, but also understand monitoring doesn't just mean recording from the cameras. You have to have an action associated with, that surveillance.
Mhm. The other piece is, a lot of organizations are using their personnel. So, when you sign in as a visitor, they'll give you a visitor badge. And if you're not showing that badge in some organizations, when you're walking around their shop floors or whatever the case may be, they're stopping you and saying, "Hey, I don't see your badge. Do you have your badge?" That is one monitoring tool as well. So numerous things to choose from here.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Just real quick, another piece of that question, I did mention as long as the cameras don't capture CUI, and that would be correct. If you did install cameras, make sure that you don't have PTZs that can drill down on plotters, printing technical data or screens or anything like that. So yeah, you'd want to capture the common stuff, but not the CUI.
Great catch, Les. Thanks. Yep.
Yeah. Thanks, team. All right. Next question. Any whisperings of Rev 3 going around? Damien, over to you.
Yes. Short answer is yes. So the FAR CUI rule, I believe it's out for final public comments right now, is using 171 Rev 3. ISACA is working on updated training for CCPs and CCAs. based on Rev 3 and some other initiatives that are kind of going on. So Rev 3 is coming, 100%. The general consensus with the FAR CUI rule is end of the year. Whether or not that happens, hard to say because it's Congress, right? But in the FAR Council, excuse me. But the general consensus is that will be released by the end of the year. So 100% Rev 3 is coming. Your requirements right now are Rev 2. Be Rev 2 compliant, but start preparing for Rev 3. And specifically start looking at those ODPs that the DoD released, a year and a half ago? Because the FAR CUI rule is utilizing those ODPs. So understand those ODPs, understand Rev 3, start doing your gap assessments and figuring out what you need to do to be ready for Rev 3.
Yeah, and the most important thing, as Thomas kind of dumped in the chat for you guys, is Rev 3 has less requirements, kinda, and more objectives. So a lot of the objectives that are currently in Rev 2 have been wrapped up and rolled up into other requirements. So, but the objectives have definitely expanded. I think it's at 140 versus or an additional 140 or something like that. So just take a look at it and then start preparing just in case.
Awesome. Thanks, Damien. Thanks, Rob. Next question. To what extent should OSCs consider using the GAO FISCAM framework to improve traceability for assessors? Thomas, what are your thoughts here?
I mean, honestly, the FISCAM doesn't really come into play. The assessment methodologies that the assessors, as well as you guys, because guess what? Since you're held accountable to self-assessment, you have to use the same methodology. That's all based around NIST 800-171 alpha. The FISCAM, I mean, it can help you, but the methodologies to provide the evidence, not only for the assessors, but also for your self-assessments, that's 800-171 alpha. And if you're not doing that, then you may not be doing your self-assessments correctly, and it could invalidate your SPRS score. Short and sweet, Lauren. How you like that?
Sounds great.
If you don't follow the methodology, you can't have an SPRS score because you don't know what it's asking.
Mhm.
All right. Next question. Is the level 2 certificate CUI? If yes, how do we verify level 2 status? Felice, will you answer this one for us?
This is a little bit of a tricky one. It is not necessarily CUI when it is issued to an organization. It is considered proprietary information to that organization. However, it gets a little murky, and I will say this, that when it gets uploaded into EMAS, it could be considered CUI as it is now in possession. The government is in possession of it. I recommend having a prior NDA with any organization that you share it with. I recommend using secure file sharing platforms at all times to share that. Do not just openly share it. Do not put it on your website. Protect that information and make certain that you are in control of who is actually sharing it and who is receiving it. That should remain with maybe 1 or 2 people in the C-suite. For example, I would not even consider sharing ours in any way, shape, or form without touching base and talking and giving it over to my bosses and Rob and Thomas and Brian here at Redspin. So protect it. It's your proprietary information, and welcome any other comments from Rob Teague, who I see thoughtfully ready to respond to that as well.
Yeah, so thanks, Felice. And you're spot on. It is not CUI, but you should safeguard it. We've already seen, as Thomas put
Yeah.
that, an example of somebody that's already falsified a certificate, and the DOJ is investigating that. So don't be the one that does that, right? But you
Yes.
can, when you go into SPRS and you look at your assessment score and all the information with it, there's an option to print a PDF export. And that's what we do. So we print that PDF export, And those that, our clients are looking to do a cloud and our MSS team providing all the security coverage for them, they want to make sure that they are indeed CMMC Level 2 certified. So we give them that PDF printout versus the certificate because we want to maintain control of that cert.
And the PDF export is also what a lot of the primes are asking for as well.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. So no matter how excited you are, don't post it on your Facebook.
Absolutely not.
All
Thank
right,
you,
next
Monica.
question. I did a JSVA. Do I have to self-certify? Les, can you tell us the answer to this one?
So the JSVA program, do you have to self-certify? So yeah, I mean, everybody's got to go in every year and self-certify after your assessment is done. So yes, it's absolutely true.
Mm-hmm. Other thing is, again, with Carly, I think Jackie's here too. So Jackie, it's good to have you here joining us as well. But for those that did do JSBA, many of them have already gone through and started their recertification process, and
True.
Microsoft is one of them. So it's really a business decision at this point on if you want to pause for that 60 days or do you want to just keep charging along. I will tell you, talking to the primes, as mentioned earlier, they do want their folks with that certificate because they would rather spend the money on a C3 PAO versus giving the money to the DOJ. So keep that in mind.
And if it was a JSVA, odds are pretty good that there's already at least one, possibly more than one annual self-assessment that should have occurred. So for anyone, whoever it may be who submitted this question, please go into SPRS, do your self-assessment as soon as possible, get that score in there, and bring yourself current, because that actually is the current compliance obligation, is having that self-assessment up to date.
And I thought you were going to say, Jeremy, and apologies if you did, that if you had a JSVA, chances are you're up for recert already after 3 years.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Well, you may be up for recert, but you're definitely up for your annual update.
Well, we did notice that trend, right? With some of the early adopters of joint surveillance, they weren't really tracking the annual requirements. So, yes, you have all those annual requirements you have to keep up with: the self assessment, the risk assessment, the certification assessment. Oh, I got a visitor. All that kind of stuff you need to make sure that you're still performing to stay compliant.
Mm-hmm.
Rob, has that kitten done its annual CY training yet?
Yes, this is Mrs. Biggleworth, and she has $1 million.
She did it on her kitty laptop.
Yes, she did.
Not that again.
All right, next
It's a real
question.
thing.
It really is. Maybe Rob can share it with the group later. What would need to happen to modify the CMM's program completely, Rob?
Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of things. So first of all, it's a rule. And again, we've already talked about it would have to go back through rulemaking, but they can do some adjustments without that full process. And I think that may be what Miss Davies is looking to leverage with her and her team. Mainly, really, Lily? Okay. Mainly, if the decision is made to get rid of NIST 800-171 and use a different framework, that's going to require a whole new rulemaking process. But if they're looking to make adjustments to the program, as some of the adjustments I mentioned earlier, that is a quick just adjustment to the program, submit it, and then we'll be on our way. So I think, honestly, that's probably what they're looking to do first. And then from there, they're going to maybe look at a new requirement or a framework. So again, it's not going to happen anytime soon. Also want to point out that at the end of this 60 days, don't expect something spectacular or, right away, some kind of voice from the DoW and the CIO office themselves. That the pause is going to end on a Friday. Typically, they don't announce anything on Fridays. It's usually the next Monday. And even then, it may still be guarded. So just be patient with the process. And again, get as much information to the team as you can so they can make an informed decision.
All right. We actually had another question came in. Rob, how does Lily spell her name?
Lilly.
Okay,
Yeah.
2 L's and a Y. Very cute.
Yeah. And yeah.
All right, I believe this is our last pre-submitted question. Our subs and supply chain aren't certified, and now with the pause are putting it off even more. What is their requirement? If they are not certified, does that mean I can't fulfill the contract? Jeremy, can you tell us about this one?
Sure. So I'm assuming this is a situation where the question was submitted by a prime, and they're obviously discussing their supply chain. As a private organization, you can require whatever you wish of those within your supply chain. So, we have primes who have said that they are going to continue and have messaged their supply chains that they expect vendors to be certified by end of year if they want to maintain approved vendor status within the supply chain. Other folks are allowing a bit more time, but it's really up to your organization and your vendor management, structure and policies on what you want to require from your supply chain. As far as the back half of that question, if they are not certified, does that mean I can't fulfill the contract? Part of this current 60-day suspension was putting on hold the November 10th date of when certification would become a contractual requirement for award of DoD contracts. So right now, there is not, you shouldn't, I don't think, have a contract that requires CMMC certification both from you and from everyone within your supply chain. Now, I don't know what the new timeline is going to be on that, but there's a lot of moving parts here. We've had some references to Rev 3, and that adds, another domain that is very specific to vendor management and supply chain risk and things of that sort. So many of the primes that we have as clients, we've seen getting ahead of this by simply rolling down requirements to their supplier saying, if you want to be an approved vendor with us, you need to get a third-party validation of your SPRS score. And that's going to be, the rules moving forward. So I am happy to have a larger conversation on this because there are a lot of moving parts, but that's essentially the gist of it.
Yeah, so definitely the self-assessment needs to be in there. I will tell you, I met with one of the contractors yesterday. They were showing us one of the contracts they just got this week, and it's saturated with CMMC level 2 information and the C3PAO assessment and other things. So again, bad news spreads quickly across the DOW, good news doesn't. So just be patient with the contracting agency as they make adjustments. So again, due diligence, do what you think is right and move forward.
At the end of the day, guys, I posted it in the chat for this session. But the 48 CFR DFARS 7021 rule, it holds the primes accountable for every single one of their subs and their vendors that are underneath that contract. And, regardless of, the various talking heads on LinkedIn, downplaying, can we stop talking about FCA and, stuff like that. The bottom line is FCA, well, DOJ is going to come knock on the prime's door first because it's their responsibility to ensure it. So if one of those allegations comes up, it's going to be the prime as well as, potentially that sub or the sub that now gets brought into the discussion. So because of that, most of the primes, they're still requiring the third party assessment because for their legal counsel, this is the only way they have some type of verification that the subs or the vendors are actually adhering to the requirements.
Yep.
All right. Thanks, guys. All right. That wraps up the questions we received in advance. Now we'd love to hear from all of you live. So if you have a question, you can post it in our Q&A or raise your hand and we'll call on you live and we will answer as many questions as we can before we get to the top of the hour. Jackie, we'd love to open it back up to you if you're available to come off mute. And
if not, we can answer Nancy's question.
Yeah.
Nancy, that's a good one. Was the pause driven by the CIO office or triggered by purchasing or someone else within DoD? Seems like the Iran war and Ukraine wars draining resources might be the driver. So Nancy, you got part of it correct. So we'll give you a half a star. Ding. There are many things playing a factor into this. one of the biggest is midterm elections. Let's not, let's address the elephant in the room. Politics is involved here. So midterm elections are playing a role. The other piece is Miss Davies is very concerned about the small business contractors that are out there, as is most of the DOW, to be honest. So she has been listening a lot to the Small Business Administration uh, and their problems with the program, et cetera, et cetera. So that is part of it. The other part of it is, yes, the Pete Hegseth himself, the Secretary of War, has stated that, our war stock is depleted. We gave a lot of it off to Ukraine and others to support their efforts. And now with Iran going on, we need our own war stock and it's not getting replenished fast enough. So, you put one and one and two together. And when the question was asked, well, why aren't they producing fast enough? The response is, well, CMMC is slowing everybody down because they can't get scheduled to get their assessments. Again, that is not fact based. So it's a lot of misconceptions, a lot of opinions. But by us sitting with Miss Davies, we made a note of this right at the beginning of that meeting, was that we're here to bring the facts to you. So if you need facts, let us know. We'll provide anything to you to include how much the assessments cost so that you can make a better informed decision. So with that group that really set that up, that was Fernando Machado, who is one of our partner C3PAOs at CyberSec Investments. We had Corin Weiss there, who is with her program. She's also a phenomenal instructor. Many of our assessors she was the teacher. And then we had Michael Dempsey, who is also the owner of CISIV, another C3PAO. And then to shake things up, we brought in Brett Cox, who is the CISO at Boeing. So an interesting point that Brett brought up that I want to bring to everybody's attention, and then let's open it up and see what you guys think. Brett made the comment to Miss Davies that, for a long time he had been supplying his self-assessment scores every year, just like he was supposed to. It wasn't until he sat on a CMMC assessment that he realized some of those requirements he interpreted wrong. So in a sense, was submitting a false assessment report to the DoD. So he said the great thing about the CMMC assessments themselves is that we learn what really is required out of NIST 800-171, because all of those assessors have gone through the formal training. It's not like we're just out here, willy-nilly picking stuff out of the trees and throwing it at you. We go through a rigorous training to understand the program and the DOW's expectations. So that was very interesting, and she found that interesting as well. So I guess I open it up to you guys. What are you guys doing across your organizations? If you don't mind coming off mute and sharing with us, are you continuing to move forward? Have you submitted your SPRS scores, et cetera, et cetera? Come on in and let's have some combos.
Well, there's been quite a few things that have been posted in the chat, since you were explaining that, Rob. And Carly answered one, but the CMMC team, posted another one talking about, AI development, and is that actually playing into the pause? Honestly, and I want to make this short so we can get to Katie's question since she has her hand raised. There's nothing in the current requirements or the current objectives that prohibit AI. It's actually already baked in. I mean, if you think about it, in CM, what's it talk about? It talks about having a security baseline. In, other areas, it talks about, development or processes or any of those other things. And in fact, NIST has an AI framework that can tie directly into whatever you're doing. So there's no limitation on using AI, just like, there's no limitation on other stuff. It's just if you do utilize it, it has to meet the requirements, which could include being FedRAMP authorized. But that's me being short and sweet. Katie, I see your hand up. Please ask us your question.
Yes. I mean, you guys were talking about what are people doing or, out there in the OSCs, what are we doing? I mean, we're going full steam ahead, just like you guys have mentioned earlier, kind of tying back to my previous comments about it isn't just DoD contracts, right? We've got other contracts that are basically eyeballing CMMC and going, why not, right? If it's important to them, it's important to us. We've heard, we run across a gambit of the different agencies. And so we're just going full speed ahead. Everybody's getting it. And that way, if we have another BPA, if we have another contract in another area, we're already at that really nice baseline and, securing our environment, that if they do decide to flip and start saying, hey, we also want NIST 800-171, guess what? We're already ahead of the curve of, going after those contracts. And again, keeping security in mind, why wouldn't you?
Yeah. No, thank you for sharing, Katie. That is the general theme we're hearing out there. So, yeah. Okay, we're running out of time, folks. I know I probably opened this up so we can get some more responses, but some folks are shy, and that's okay. Thank you for voting for Thomas's outfit for NCS. I'm not happy with the outfit you picked, but I will make sure that I put my glasses on to where I won't actually see everything that Thomas will be wearing. So I'll pass this back to Lauren or Monica so that we can close out for the day.
All right. Thanks, guys. Before everyone jumps off, we'd appreciate your help with one final item. We recently updated our third annual survey to better understand how organizations across the DIB are responding to the Phase 2 pause. So the survey is shorter. It takes 3 minutes, and Redspin will still donate $10 to the Gary Sinise Foundation for every new completed response. So I think we're adding the survey link to the chat right now. And it's also linked in our resources. If you guys could take a couple of minutes to do that, we'd really appreciate hearing from the industry. So please take a look at that and fill that out. All right, we're launching a poll now before we wrap up, just to see what upcoming events that you'll be at. The Redspin team will be participating in the SMB CMMC Small Business Roundtable today. It's actually upcoming in a few minutes. We have linked the registration page as well on the resources tab if you guys would like to join that. And Rob, did you have any additional info for why people should join?
The SBA, because mainly that's what we are as C3PAOs. We're also small businesses. So took the opportunity to sign up so that we can just kind of hear from the inside what's going on. What are they looking for? And then maybe we can help address their questions and comments and concerns as well. So really just kind of sitting and seeing what the larger group of the small businesses are thinking about this program.
Yes. And then also tonight, it's not listed on this page, but Thomas is speaking at the NDIA Lone Star chapter meeting tonight in Dallas, I believe at SMU. We have the link on our upcoming events in the resources that you can get registered for that if you're local and able to attend. And then upcoming in August 11th through the 13th, we'll be at the NDIA Space and Missile Defense Symposium. Greg Powers will be there walking the show floor. Then we'll be at Navy Gold Coast in San Diego at booth 1003. We'd love to meet with you there if you're going to be there. We'll also be speaking and attending the CMMC in Practice Forum, a discussion about Rev 3 with Thomas and Stephanie from our team. And lastly, we'll also be exhibiting at the National Cyber Summit same week in Huntsville, Alabama. Again, we'll be hosting our super fun patriotic networking event, so stay tuned for more information and the details to register for that. So we'd love to see you there in person. All right, on behalf of everyone here at Redspin, thank you for joining us for today's CMMC Connect. A special thank you to all of our panelists for sharing their expertise and answering everyone's questions. If we didn't get to your question for any reason today, please don't hesitate to reach out to us directly. Our team is always happy to help connect with you and continue the conversation. So thank you again. Have a wonderful day. And we hope to see you next month at our next CMMC Connect session next month. Take care, everybody.
Stay safe but dangerous.